Buongiorno, Principessa. Life is Beautiful wasn't just a heartwarming romantic dramedy, it was a cinematic balancing act between laughter and the unspeakable horrors of war. Roberto Benigni turned tragedy into poetry, but behind the curtain lay chaos, arguments with producers, dangerous risks on set, and creative battles that could have ended the film before it began. Today we're diving into 20 weird facts about Life is Beautiful, from near disasters during filming to controversies that followed the film around the globe. And wait until the bonus fact, which reveals a secret twist that almost no fan has ever heard. Stay with me because this story is about to change the way you see one of cinema's most unforgettable films. The Holocaust comedy nobody wanted. When Roberto Benigni first pitched Life is Beautiful, studios balked. A romantic comedy about the Holocaust? Executives called it dangerous, tone-deaf, and career suicide. Not tragedy, but comedy was the pitch. Critics in early previews accused Benigni of trivializing genocide, yet he pushed forward, believing laughter could pierce despair. The idea came from stories survivors told him, that humor, even in camps, was sometimes a weapon of survival. Against all advice, Benigni doubled down. He fought censors, skeptics, and even fellow Italians who feared international backlash. What audiences didn't know is that the film nearly never got made. It survived not because of money or studio faith, but because of one man's conviction that joy, even absurd joy, could live inside unimaginable pain. That gamble would change film history forever. Benigni refused Hollywood stars. The studio wanted big names. They suggested actors like Tom Hanks, even Robin Williams, to make the project marketable. But Benigni refused. He wasn't just the writer and director, he insisted he was the only one who could play Guido. Producers begged him to at least consider a Hollywood star for Dora, the leading lady, but Benigni laughed. He cast his real-life wife, Nicoletta Braschi. Their chemistry, born of years together, created intimacy that no casting director could replicate. On set, the line between fiction and reality blurred. Braschi later confessed she felt Guido's devotion wasn't acting, it was Roberto himself, not Hollywood polish, but raw personal truth. That stubborn casting choice became the film's soul. The tank ending was almost cut. The iconic ending, where Guido convinces his son the concentration camp is a game and that the prize is a real tank, was nearly erased. Studio execs called it unrealistic and too sentimental. They argued it undermined the seriousness of the Holocaust. Benigni, however, refused. He explained that the tank wasn't literal, it was metaphor, hope wrapped in steel. For Guido's son, surviving with joy was the ultimate victory. Benigni threatened to pull the film if the scene was cut. He declared, "Without the tank there is no movie." The producers relented. Decades later it remains one of cinema's most haunting final images. Not a war trophy, but a child's belief in his father's love. Benigni's father inspired the story. This wasn't just fiction, it was deeply personal. Benigni's father, Luigi, spent 2 years in a Nazi labor camp during World War II. He survived through humor, telling jokes even while starving. When he returned, he passed those stories to his son. "He taught me that laughter is an act of resistance," Benigni once said. That lesson shaped every frame of Life is Beautiful. Luigi's voice is hidden in Guido's clownish antics, in his ability to twist terror into play, not tragedy, but resilience. That was Luigi's legacy. Audiences watching the film see a story of invention, but behind it lies a son channeling his father's unbreakable spirit. Every smile in the film carries a shadow of those real memories. The prison camp was built like a labyrinth. The concentration camp set wasn't random, it was meticulously designed to disorient actors. Production designers built fences and cramped barracks in twisting layouts. Benigni instructed them to make pathways confusing, like a maze. He wanted actors to feel genuinely lost, as prisoners would. Crew members reported getting turned around on set, unable to find the exits. Even Nicoletta Braschi admitted the atmosphere unsettled her between takes. Not just a backdrop, but an emotional weapon. The set itself shaped performances. It forced actors into discomfort, reminding them of the film's stakes with every step. The effect worked. When you watch the film, that authentic unease bleeds into the screen. The script was rewritten on set. Benigni was notorious for improvising. The original script went through constant rewrites, even during shooting. Call sheets were useless by lunchtime because he'd scribble new dialogue overnight. Crew members complained they couldn't keep up, but Benigni thrived in chaos. He believed spontaneity would keep emotions raw. One cameraman recalled that Nicoletta Braschi often didn't know what Roberta would say, so her reactions were real. That's why moments like Guido's quick-witted jokes feel unscripted, because they were. Not rigid planning, but live discovery. The risk was huge. Continuity errors piled up, and editors had nightmares piecing scenes together. Yet the gamble worked. The unpredictability gave the film its heartbeat, making it feel like a story happening in the present tense, not the past. Holocaust survivors reacted strongly. When Life is Beautiful premiered, Holocaust survivors filled the screenings. Some wept, thanking Benigni for showing joy alongside pain. Others condemned it, calling it dangerously misleading. One survivor remarked, "There were no games, there was only death." The debate was brutal. Critics feared the film softened historical truth. Supporters argued it honored resilience. The divide followed the movie around the world. In Israel, some audiences embraced it as a tale of spiritual victory. In the U.S., Jewish organizations clashed over its message. What audiences didn't know, Benigni privately screened the film for survivors before release. He wanted to ensure it wasn't betrayal, but tribute. Their mixed reactions shaped the controversy that would shadow the film's legacy forever. The music was a weapon of emotion. Composer Nicola Piovani didn't just score scenes, he scored contradictions. Soft lullabies played over barbed wire, light-hearted melodies carried through moments of terror. Benigni instructed him, "Make music that lies to the child, but tells the truth to the audience." The result? Soundtracks that felt like emotional double agents. Piovani layered cheerful rhythms over brutal visuals, deepening the tragedy. The famous Buongiorno Principessa theme was deliberately written as a waltz, something timeless, as if it could dance even in the dark. The Academy later awarded Piovani an Oscar for his work, but behind the elegance was strategy, not decoration, but manipulation. The music convinced audiences to laugh through tears exactly as Guido convinced his son. The shooting schedule was torturous. Production wasn't glamorous, it was exhausting. Actors endured long days in freezing conditions on camp sets. Extras complained of working in mud and barbed wire for 12 hours at a stretch. Benigni, however, insisted on pushing limits. He wanted the cast physically drained, mirroring prisoners' fatigue. Nicoletta Braschi later admitted she lost weight unintentionally, simply from stress and the environment. Crew members described days where tempers flared, where exhaustion caused breakdowns. But Benigni thrived on that rawness. Not polished performances, but cracked voices and slumped bodies. That's what he wanted. Watching the finished film, you see actors collapse into beds, stumble through routines, or cling to smiles. That weariness isn't performance. It's lived exhaustion. Benigni broke all the Hollywood rules. By the time Life is Beautiful reached international markets, Hollywood executives didn't know what to do with it. It broke genre rules. Not a comedy, not a tragedy, not quite a romance, not quite a war movie. Studio marketers panicked. How do you sell a Holocaust comedy? Posters were redesigned endlessly, trailers recut for each country. In the U.S., Miramax gambled on emotion. They framed it as a love story in the darkest time. The risk paid off. Audiences filled theaters, curious about the impossible blend. Go ahead and like and subscribe, because this is only halfway through. Things are about to get wilder, from secret Oscar politics to on-set disasters you never imagined. The Oscars' standing ovation was unprecedented. When Life is Beautiful won the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film, something wild happened. Roberto Benigni didn't just walk to the stage, he climbed across chairs, stepping on seatbacks, waving his arms like a circus act. Hollywood insiders were stunned. The Oscars are infamous for stiff etiquette, but Benigni shattered protocol. Steven Spielberg laughed, Elizabeth Taylor clapped, and the entire Dolby Theater erupted in applause. It wasn't arrogance, but pure disbelief. "I feel like I am in the hands of a big, warm family," he said. What audiences didn't know, security had been briefed about Benigni's unpredictability. They were warned he might try something unconventional. They were right. That chaotic dash up the aisle remains one of Oscar's most unforgettable moments, part comedy, part history. Benigni beat Spielberg at the Oscars. Few remember how controversial the 1999 Academy Awards were. Saving Private Ryan was the critics' favorite, and Steven Spielberg had Hollywood sympathy. Yet Roberto Benigni stunned the room when he took home the Oscar for Best Actor, beating Tom Hanks, Edward Norton, Ian McKellen, and Nick Nolte. It was the first time in history that a performance in a foreign language film won the award. Some American critics were outraged, claiming the Academy chose sentiment over merit. Others saw it as a victory for global cinema. The twist? Benigni didn't expect to win. Friends said he didn't even prepare a speech. His acceptance was improvised, chaotic, and heartfelt, an echo of Guido himself, not just an award, but a revolution. The film was banned in several countries. Despite international acclaim, Life is Beautiful was too controversial for some governments. In parts of Asia and the Middle East, authorities banned it, citing inappropriate humor towards sacred suffering. In Malaysia, censors argued the mix of comedy and genocide was insulting. Even in Germany, screenings were initially met with heated debates about historical responsibility. Not universal praise, but fierce rejection. The bans ironically fueled curiosity. Pirated copies circulated underground, spreading faster than official releases. In Italy, the censorship battles made headlines, with some politicians condemning the film while others defended it as cultural pride. What audiences didn't know, Benigni never tried to fight the bans. He believed the film would outlive censorship, and he was right. Today, it is studied in classrooms around the globe. Nicoletta Braschi nearly quit the film. Behind the on-screen devotion was real-life conflict. Nicoletta Braschi, who played Dora, admitted she almost left production midway. The emotional toll was crushing. Scenes in the camp, especially those showing separation from her son on screen, were so raw that she broke down off-camera. Benigni, her husband, pushed her to continue. Crew members described tense days where Nicoletta argued with Roberto, begging for fewer takes. "It was unbearable," she said later. Not glamour, but sacrifice. In the Abdo end, her performance, stoic yet heart-shattering, became one of the film's anchors. Audiences felt Dora's quiet suffering, but few realized Nicoletta carried that weight off-set, too. Her near departure could have derailed the film entirely. Critics called it Holocaust light. Not all reviews were glowing. Some critics savaged Life is Beautiful, branding it Holocaust light. They accused Benigni of sugarcoating genocide for mainstream audiences. Roger Ebert defended the film, calling it a fable, not a documentary. Others argued it was dangerous fantasy. The label stuck in certain circles, sparking decades of debate. Not tragedy, but fable. That was Benigni's defense. He insisted the story wasn't about the Holocaust itself, but about the human spirit. What audiences didn't know, Benigni deliberately avoided showing graphic violence. He believed horror was more powerful implied than displayed. Whether praised or condemned, the controversy made the film unforgettable and forced conversations about art, history, and responsibility. Politicians turned it into a battlefield. When Life is Beautiful swept international awards, politicians tried to claim it. In Italy, left-wing leaders praised it as a triumph of culture. Right-wing leaders accused Benigni of exploiting tragedy for fame. In the U.S., debates erupted in Congress about whether Holocaust films should focus on laughter at all. The movie was even cited in speeches about resilience and human dignity, not art in a vacuum, but a weapon in culture wars. Benigni hated the politicization. "I only wanted to tell a fairy tale," he said. But once the film crossed borders, it was no longer his. It became a symbol, twisted to fit agendas. What audiences didn't know, the very success that elevated the film also chained it to political noise it was never meant to carry. Teachers risked their jobs, showing it. In classrooms around the world, teachers saw Life is Beautiful as a tool for teaching the Holocaust, but some paid a price. In conservative school districts, educators were reprimanded or even suspended for showing the film, accused of trivializing genocide. Others praised it as an accessible entry point for younger students. One teacher recalled how her middle schoolers wept, asking questions they'd never considered before. Not sterile textbooks, but visceral storytelling. The risk teachers took proved the film's polarizing power. What audiences didn't know, Holocaust museums later endorsed the film for its ability to spark discussion, though always with disclaimers, education or offense. The line was razor thin, and teachers walked it every time they pressed play. Benigni refused to profit from tragedy. After the movie's massive success, Benigni shocked Hollywood by declining endorsement deals linked to Life is Beautiful. Toy companies wanted Guido dolls. A theme park in Italy proposed a Life is Beautiful ride featuring the tank. Benigni refused every offer. "This is not Mickey Mouse," he said sharply. He believed commercializing the film would betray its soul, not profit, but respect. That was his mantra. What audiences didn't know, he even redirected portions of his earnings to Holocaust education programs in Europe. At a time when studios chased merchandise dollars, Benigni chose legacy over cash. It's one reason his career cooled in Hollywood. He didn't play by its rules, but it also protected the film's dignity. The Vatican had mixed feelings. Few films stirred the Catholic Church like Life is Beautiful. Vatican officials praised its celebration of family, sacrifice, and hope, but others criticized its lack of direct religious framing. Some clerics argued Guido's optimism was too secular, while others called it divine in disguise. Pope John Paul II reportedly watched it privately and admired its message of love. Not condemnation, but cautious blessing. The Vatican's ambivalence reflected the movie's power. It crossed spiritual boundaries but refused to be claimed. For Benigni, a lifelong Catholic, the film was never about doctrine. It was about humanity. Yet its reception in Rome revealed how even religious institutions wrestled with its blend of comedy, tragedy, and faith. Benigni's career never recovered. Ironically, the film that crowned Benigni also crushed him. After Life is Beautiful, he attempted another epic, Pinocchio, 2002. Critics destroyed it, calling it self-indulgent and clumsy. Hollywood offers dried up. Benigni's global fame, once blinding, dimmed almost overnight. Not triumph, but curse. That was the film's aftershock. He admitted years later that Life is Beautiful left him paralyzed, unable to follow its success. Audiences saw Guido as eternal joy, but behind the smile, Benigni carried the weight of impossible expectations. What audiences didn't know, the man who gave the world hope through laughter was himself haunted by the shadow of his own masterpiece. Bonus fact: the secret ending that was never filmed hidden in Benigni's notebooks is an alternate ending. In it, Guido doesn't die off-screen. Instead, his son witnesses his father's execution, yet still hears his last whispered line, "Remember, it's a game." The boy survives, clinging to his father's words. Producers begged Benigni to shoot it, believing it would add realism. He refused. "The child must never see," he said. Protecting innocence was the core of the story, not despair, but memory. That was the true prize. The unfilmed ending remains one of cinema's greatest what-ifs, locked forever in Benigni's pages. Life is Beautiful endures because it walked a tightrope no film dared attempt, balancing tragedy and comedy, despair and hope. Its production was chaos, its reception divided, its legacy complex. Yet it proves something unforgettable. Even in the darkest night, laughter can be defiance. If you found these hidden truths powerful, like and subscribe for more untold stories of cinema. Because sometimes the real drama happens off-screen.